On this episode of ResiWeek, what's smart about smart homes? Home indoor air quality is worse than your office, and indoor air quality monitors. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 317. I love this job.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Just Add Power, the global leader in video over IP solutions with systems that give you easy installation, unmatched scalability, and outstanding performance.
Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.TV. And this week, I'm pleased to be joined by two of my longtime friends. First, we have Mr. Jeremy Glowacki. He's the executive editor of Residential Tech Today. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing well. You know, I'm fighting a non-COVID cough, so I apologize if I don't get to the cough button fast enough. But
right. Can you have a cough that isn't COVID? I don't think that's
yeah, it's weird. We had COVID in the family, and my daughter and I never got it. And we've got a ton of these tests, and I keep thinking if I could just get it, then I wouldn't worry about it anymore. But I think that the other stuff still happens. You still get colds. Oddly.
That's what I'm told. Well, I'm glad you're joining us, and hopefully you won't cough too much through it. I have a cough button.
I think I do
which
too.
Is fantastic.
Yeah, I think I need to find that.
It's great. And today's a special day because you're going to get to meet my producer, Mitchell Tulin. He is the producer of my show and Tim's shows, and pretty much the head producer of every show here on AVNation. Mitchell, how you doing, bud?
Oh, it's great. Thanks for having me. Finally, first time caller, long time watcher. It's good.
Long time watcher.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited. It's first and last show probably, and
no, we're gonna make this like a monthly thing. It'll be great.
Mitchell, I feel like, when I've got a podcast coming up with you guys, that there's a lot of pressure because I know you choose the stories. And if sometimes I'm a guest and there's no story from Residential Tech Today, I feel like, man, I didn't make the cut with Mitchell. I got to work harder and better and all that stuff.
You got to write better.
That bias ends up where I'm like, Jeremy's here. I should probably choose a Res Tech thing.
Then it's really bad when you don't, because you know that there's just not anything good that week. So, but thankfully there's one story.
So what you're figuring out, if you're listening and or watching, is that if you want to get a story on the show, don't send it to me. Send it to Mitchell, because he's the one who finds everything for us. All right, gentlemen, let's kick this off. And I'll give Mitchell a fun disclaimer as well. He's worked with us at AVNation for what, 5 years now?
3
years?
It just seems like 5, Matt.
I lost the last 2 years, so I have no idea.
That's fair.
So he has not worked in the industry directly in that sense, but again, like, he reads stuff every week for this show, for AV Week. He probably knows more about this stuff than half of y'all do. So pay attention. All right, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from Residential Systems. We'll get to the one from ResTech, don't worry. What's so smart about smart homes? A look at what consumers expect from their smart homes and how custom installers can expand their views. Read through this article. It actually is a really good thought provoker. There's some really good quotes in here from Ian Bryant, as well as Peter Aylett and Rich Green, a couple of gentlemen who are involved with CD in a couple of different ways, talking about what the user perception is of a smart home and what actually makes a smart home. And as you can imagine, it's going to differ depending who you talk to. Jeremy, I want to start with this with you on this. Sorry, I'm having a day. Does this highlight the fact that everything is so subjective to the people involved? My view on what a smart home is going to differ from yours and Mitchell's and every single one of my clientele. Their definition is going to change depending on what they've read, heard about, saw on TV, listened to me drone on about, et cetera, et cetera. Does this just go to highlight that every user expectation is going to be different, and as an integrator, as an industry, we have to recognize that the majority of those opinions honestly are valid?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to understand going in that that folks may even have a resistance to something being called a smart home, because it seems like your home is going to be smarter than you in a bad way. Like it's going to go off the rails and start doing things you don't want it to do at the wrong times of day or whatever. Something as simple as lighting control. We've got a product in our industry that we've kind of all been playing with. It's pretty new, called Oro. It's a kind of a smart lighting product. It started as a DIY product, and then they realized it wasn't really a good fit for DIY, so they're embracing the CEDIA channel, custom integration business. And first time I installed it, my wife really didn't like the sensor sort of aspect to it. She didn't really want it to turn on when she was going to the bathroom at night and the lights came on. And it was only because I hadn't properly set it up yet and told it not to turn on in certain times. But I think when things start happening that you aren't expecting, or it's out of the routine, you start to kind of get a little reluctant to have this quote unquote smart home. But it's become kind of the lexicon that we've had to lean on, the most common thing. No one really says integrated home outside of our custom integration industry. Like the most average consumers don't talk like that. And this article is really good about that, saying it's so hard to really spell out what this industry should be called. And so you just kind of fall back on something like smart home. And it does mean a lot of different things to different people. What I really liked about this, a couple of the comments, is that what it's evolved into, it's not the Jetsons anymore. It's not like automatically walking your dog or something like that. It's really about remote access, so that if you're away from your home, to be able to have some way of checking on the status of your home. And it's also about reliability and having things work the way they're supposed to work, and have the network stay online when you need it. And really about some of those ideas and making your home more reliable and do the things that you need it to do to be productive with your work from home, your school from home, your entertainment, and all of that stuff. So that's the smart part. It's not the home automation that we used to think it was going to become necessarily. Although, hey, having some shades that open at a certain time of day or close at a certain time of day, I think that would be a pretty smart thing to have in a home, in an integrated home. So there are some smart capabilities, and it's just a matter of telling folks what those are and what they can be, what they shouldn't be, based on your experience as a professional.
I agree a lot, because I feel like there's definitely that subjectivity about what smart means. And to me, that smartness is like, it's more proactive than reactive. A lot of our stuff right now is reactive. You yell at the generic voice assistant, so we don't activate any of them, and say, hey, turn on the lights. Hey, it's cold in here. Turn the thermostat, mess with it. It doesn't really, there's stuff like occupancy sensors and certain metrics that it can take. I know that I want to say Nest has a thing where it kind of starts to regulate where your temperature is and make a schedule around it. That would be, to me, a smarter thing. But when you say, oh, it's a smart house, you're like, so it can do stuff. And you're like, more like you tell it to. And I think that is kind of where our things lie.
Well, isn't that the point, though, that really anything can be quote unquote smart, but nothing really is? Almost everything, even to Jeremy's point, the shades going up and down, typically that's not accomplished via a sensor that senses sunlight, although it can be done like that. It's typically done by programming, where you're running an astronomical clock and the integrator has programmed that device to do that thing for you. Almost nothing that's actually in our homes actually has really any AI.
Yeah.
Or machine learning, right? It's almost all based on something that we've programmed based off information that we've gleaned from a customer to say, hey, we want this in our house. We want our house to respond this way. I love that you use that phrasing, Mitchell, because that's really what it is. We're having things in a house respond to things that we've either told it to do or based on a parameter. Nothing, again, with the exception of like Nest and a couple other really DIY products, nothing is actually doing anything itself. It's doing it in a response to something we've programmed or something that we've told it to do.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of thought of that Oro example, because they really are promoting the AI aspect of it. And when I first got it, I kind of turned off all of those features because I kind of a little freaked out about it. I didn't know if I liked.
My wife hated it.
It's
too.
always a thing where you're like, I know better than you, house. I live here.
Yeah, I just didn't trust that it was going to actually. And I've had to, just because I had to review it, I had to kind of try it out and let those features work. And I'm not sure I'm convinced that it's working yet. It's still hard to decide if it's learned some of my routines quite yet. I feel like it is. I feel like when I walk into a room now at night that it doesn't turn on 100% when it's turned off from lack of activity. So that's kind of cool, because what would happen is I'd walk into my office, because it's where I have one of the dimmers back here, and it would go 100% when I'd come in to grab a charger cable or something off my desk. And I was like, yeah, I don't have my lights 100% anywhere in the house at like 9 p.m. Yep. So I would hit it down a notch, trying to train it. And now I feel like when I come in, it comes on at like 80%. So that's cool. It's starting to learn some routines. But then there's a time when you need it 100%. It's like, it's never going to read your mind. It's never going to be perfect. So there's still things that are weird.
I think that's the hardest thing with anything that is quote unquote an automated home, a smart home. The number of sensors and data pieces you're going to need for it to understand that, hey, when I'm running, to your point, running downstairs to grab something out of the fridge versus running downstairs to watch a movie. Nothing can figure that out unless I'm an incredible creature of habit and run downstairs at 6 o'clock to grab something out of the fridge to help, my wife make dinner every single day. And then every night at 9 o'clock, we go downstairs and watch a movie, right? Those are like, I think we're asking way too much of most smart devices.
Yeah, and I mean, real quick though, like what would be, other than lighting control, where I guess you're trying to save a little bit of energy, like you're really like just nodding. I love having control for lighting control, where I have it set to a scene for that time of night. Night mode dims down certain rooms, but I still want the rooms lit. I want lighting throughout the house still. Don't want things just to turn off when I'm not in the room. What other, I guess, heating and air conditioning, HVAC stuff? Curious from an integration standpoint, Matt, what would you think could be automated? Blinds
and lights are the big ones. HVAC is huge. There's all kinds of things. Like we've had clients where we've, again, programmed things, but we program, TVs in the office to come on at 5:30 to, business news or CNBC or, whatever it is, because they're day traders and they want that to happen. We've got, so there's a variety of things, but, typically it's not like, I don't want to walk around my house and have stuff just randomly happening.
Yep.
There are certain things that I want to happen, but, and I've said this a couple of times on the show, we've taken our voice assistant out of the house and it's been awesome. And I have an industry one that's behind me that's still in a box that I need to take out and play with. But I really love not having something yelling at me in my house. Yeah. It's been great.
It almost is like the perception is there. You have the smart, and of course people go with what it is. So in a way, integrators are the greatest showmen in that it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's a lot of very calibrated things. And that's just what we have to do. I say we, a royal we, like integrators, you guys have to do, is to kind of show. Of course, it's not going to be AI. It's not going to be artificial intelligence. And most people don't want that because they go back to those fiction where it's like Skynet and things. AI is never really a good thing in the mind of fiction, but when you look at the smart home and just say things will just work, which is not 100% a certainty either, but it's up to the integrator to kind of get that message across to say, like, it'll work. You just gotta, and we'll help you.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest key. It's very similar to the lawsuit that caused Apple and Samsung to display on the bottom of their little commercials that sequences are shortened. Because we think that so much stuff is going to happen automatically, and it's happening because we told it to do it when you expect it to happen automatically. All right, let's change topics for a moment. This comes to us from CE Pro. A study finds that indoor air quality is often worse in your home than it is in your office. This should shock literally no one. Now, specifically because they're saying offices. If they were saying workplaces, different. But offices, this should shock no one. And the reason for that is because in an office, you actually have to follow a bunch of codes as far as when fresh air is exchanged into that building. All this other stuff comes into play that never really happens in your residential space. Mitchell, I'm going to start with you on this one. There is a ton of information in here, and it goes through a lot of things dictating what the quality inside offices and homes looks like at different times based on participants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it does sort of talk about why that happens, and why the difference is so strong. But beyond that, once we know this, is there a way that we can actually address this? Is this something that, we've talked in the channel a bit about indoor air quality and how we need to monitor it and be aware of it. But this is really something for the HVAC community from a application standpoint. There shouldn't be any integrators putting a life breath system into a home. So what do we do with this information? Can we do anything with this information? Or is this just one of those things of, hey, again, we can pull a data set and then use that to hopefully encourage our HVAC partners to better the air quality in somebody's home? Or, I don't know, do something crazy like open a window.
It's interesting. I'm fascinated. First off, you did say read the article, and I tried to read the MDPI official thing, and I think my brain cracked. It's a lot of numbers and stuff, and I was trying to find out. It's a lot of numbers. Because this is why I'm not a professional, because I didn't think of code and things. My first thought was factors like when you're living at home. Just in my example alone, I have 2 dogs, 2 cats. Any given week, there are nephews and nieces running around. There's cooking, laundry going on. A lot of things are happening in the home. And in the office, I come here, I do my work, I stare at the clock until it's time to go, and then I run away. I love this job. I will.
Good save.
Offices are generally bigger. They have industrial strength HVAC systems, like you say. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what I find interesting in that way where the integrators come in is that it reminds me of the work from home situation where people just thought, oh, we'll just take our microphones or our things and we'll just plop them into our house and it works, and it doesn't. Here, it's a weird innate thing. You can change the stuff in your home, but it's not as easy as, and it's there. It's been there. It's not a situation where, we're forcing one thing into another. Your area is kind of there. But I will say, it feels like a gotcha kind of article. It almost feels like it's calling out people like David Danto who are saying remote work is the future and it's beautiful and everyone loves it. It doesn't feel like that exactly, because it's still, as far as I can tell, it's the air quality part is worse, but it's not dangerous. It never reached to that level of where you should be panicking. And I feel like it's a good resource to have if you, I guess, are an integrator and can say, here, look at this. We can show you that this is not quite there, and maybe we can put something in to help with that.
Jeremy, there's so much in this conversation around, when they started building residential homes tighter, right, from an airflow, right, that was deemed to be better, and it took them 10 to 20 years to realize, oh yeah, when we build it really tight, we don't get any fresh air. So now we got to put in life breath, which, if you don't know life breath, it's the big boxes that are cold to hot air exchange that go in the basements or the furnace rooms of a lot of buildings. That became a big deal, and that became something that is prevalent in the majority of homes. They have something like that. Commercial spaces, again, anything that's been built or renovated recently, there is a ton of code around the air quality in a commercial environment and how often they have to bring in and recycle that air. Heck, COVID alone in Ontario for a place like a dental office required that they recycle the air in a dental room 10 times an hour, which is obscene and ridiculously next to impossible to achieve. But that being said, there's so much more knowledge around how that goes. If you've ever left your house to go to a trade show and took your family with you, when you close your house and then come back 2 days later, it is typically this nasty bastion of stale, ridiculous air. How do we go about finding ways to promote this, promote better air quality in the home? Or again, is this even our fight to fight?
Yeah, so I discovered this PBS show and interviewed the hosts of the show. They're Corbett and Grace Lunsford. The show is called Home Diagnosis, and they run this thing called the Building Performance Workshop. I'd never seen the show before, but Corbett was a guest speaker at a booth at the Builder Show a couple weeks ago. So I got a press release because I was going to go to the show and I ended up not going, but got an interview with him and Grace. And this show, if you find it on the web, on their website, you can see all the past episodes that appear on PBS in some hour that I must not be watching TV because I've never seen it. They're out of Atlanta, and their main thing is kind of doing the science of the home. It's really interesting. It also kind of freaks you out, and you start thinking, "My God, my home is so unhealthy. I'm breathing in.
My house is killing me."
Yeah, and they're not like that, but they're going and they do case studies. They go into a home in Chicago that just got renovated. They spent tons of money, got the new HVAC system, but they bought too powerful of a system for the size of the ductwork because it's a retrofit. So in fact, it's not performing better, even though they put more performance in. And what you're finding is that these folks, they find that one or two really smart HVAC guy in that community. I don't know how they find them, but they do. And it's the guy that understands all this stuff. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's learned lessons over the years, like guys do in our business. Veterans that have the wisdom of making mistakes and knowing when products can't solve it, when it's a bad fit for the home or whatever it is. And a lot of it just comes down to filtration, having a good filter, making sure you're changing the filter out, not getting too thick of a filter, which is actually going to burn out your HVAC system. But my God, it is so much pressure as a homeowner to know how to do this stuff. You realize almost by error every time. Like if you're in a home that has high water table and you have a sump pump, and you forget that you don't realize you need a battery backup for when you have a big storm situation, the power goes out, and then you have a basement flood, and then you've got a mold situation, and it turns into this and that. And these folks are really interesting to talk to, but when it comes down to the physics, chemistry, and microbiology of homes, sometimes less is more. It's like it's as simple as having a filter. I do think having sensors might be a way. We have a story that we were going to maybe get to about this thing called Air Things, this brand.
I'm going to drop it right now just for fun.
But what was interesting about that, I started reading through that and like, okay, and I'm the one that posted this product story, but a lot of times what they're talking about trying to sense in the home. It's like for city dwellers who are exposed to pollutants such as construction activity, vehicle exhaust, airborne chemicals. Most of us in the suburbs aren't having those problems. It's a very unique thing. Or you're in a wildfire-prone area. These are obvious contaminants. It's not like you're just average pet dander and things like that we're probably going to be more likely to be, dealing with. But so I don't think that the need for some of these things is all that high level. It's just radon is one of those things that you need to be aware of, and having a filter changed out of your furnace.
So, and that's, we're going to segue into this just for a quick second because it is really interesting to me. This is on ResiTechToday.com, and it's the AirThings View Plus pollution sensor, that monitors indoor air quality, shows pollution, and radon. And I'm happy that you brought up the suburbs, because everyone, to your point, thinks, oh, it's the city where they're dealing with construction and smog and everything that we know LA and New York deal with. But radon is something that you find stinking everywhere. And you don't have to have a basement that has an unexcavated space to have radon. You can literally just have a basement and get radon. So once you get a sensor like this, Jeremy, what do we do with it?
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know if there's any integration. I think we're at an early stage here of talking healthy home in our industry. And honestly, we always turn to lighting. And I just got back from Lightapalooza, that was an HTSA-sponsored event about installing lighting. And it's dealing with LED lighting it's more like outdoor lighting than it is artificial lighting. And that's quote-unquote healthy home. But when it gets into like HVAC stuff, I think you've got to have a partnership with that HVAC contractor and let them be the experts in that part of the integrated home, because maybe you're tying in the HVAC controls to a Control 4 system or a Crestron system, whatever it is. But after that, unless you're really into science and learning about stuff that's out of your normal wheelhouse, I think you depend on another expert, which is hopefully that really informed HVAC contractor. I don't think that's an area we want to get into, honestly.
Yeah, Mitchell, I'll give you the last word on this.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do that. It's fun. I'm really intrigued with this. I kind of want to order one, but at the same time, I look at it and go, it reminds me of a brand new version of the little like humidity sensor gauge needle thing, temperature combo that every one of our parents probably had sitting on a table somewhere. It had the little needle as the humidity rose. Is this just another thing that we're going to get a sensor for, put it on the wall or put it on a table and go, hey, look, I can see what the pollution in my house is, and never do anything with it? Is it info for info's sake?
Yes. Next question.
Good one.
Well, thanks for coming on the show today.
I've always wanted to do that. Yeah. The part that does intrigue me is always with a sensor is what to do with that. Measuring is important to an extent when you're anything with you have a smoke alarm. We have CO2 alarms now that are separate from that. And I think this one also does have CO2 capabilities. I think it said in the article. So it does kind of add on to that rather than just another one in there. But that is kind of the part where you're like, okay, clearly if there's a gas leak in your house, you go, maybe we should fix that before we all pass out. And this is the part that I have not entirely researched of what do you do if there's radon in your place? I'm not sure.
You get it eradicated.
Okay.
It's a thing.
Yeah. So
yeah, you get it a lot from sump pumps, honestly.
Unless you're in an area, which I'm also learning that the EPA has an entire map of the spectrum of places that are in. If you're in a dangerous spot, maybe consider it. Otherwise, I don't think this is a general consumer kind of thing. It's very specialized. I mean, it does also have the fine particulate matter sensor in it as well, which is neat. But ultimately, it comes down to what you would do after you find these measurements. It's less about the thing is neat, but you want a solution afterwards.
Fortunately, we all have a bunch of masks now, so maybe you just pop on one of those and just live like that for a while. I don't know.
I don't know if it works for radon.
No, probably not radar, but
Probably not.
maybe for cat dander.
Oh,
Ooh,
yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, let's leave it there. Congratulations, Mitchell. You made it through your first show.
Boy.
Yay! All right, gentlemen, if people want to connect with you, learn more about AVNation, find your musings or drawings. I pitched that for you. Where can they do that?
No, I'm going to take a Tim on this one. Don't search for me on the Twitters because it's art. And if you're an AV person and you like art, then that's cool. But otherwise, I don't even do it anyways. Instead, I mean, if you want to hear my voice for whatever reason, there's a show called Daily Download, which on AVNation that covers a snippet of AV information 5 times a week. And then I'm going to take a page from Richie and just say, check out AVNation.tv. Check out our underwriters, because for purely selfish reasons, that's the way I get paid. And also it helps us out. You get a shows like ResiWeek.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, and if you are trying to find him on Twitter, just look for people chirping me. He'll be one of them.
Oh, yes, and if you want to be on this show, I should probably actually do that. My email is mtulin@conferencetech.com, because we're part of CTI now. If you want to join this show, or if you have people or have interesting stories, or just want to yell at me, and I'll yell and I'll relay it back to Matt.
Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Jeremy, if people want to connect with you, learn more about residential tech today, catch your latest episode of your podcast, where can they do that?
The website is restechtoday.com, and the podcast is called Residential Tech Talks, and you can find that on Apple Podcasts or even links to it on our website, where we did interview those folks I was just talking about, Lunsfords, for last week's podcast. And this week, an AVNation sponsor was my guest. We just got off the line a bit ago, and that's Taft Strickland from our friends at Just Add Power. So
we love
Taft.
Taft.
And I kind of jumped off of that one to get to this one, and there was so much more we could have talked about. I really wanted to get into those fun parties they host at CEDIA. We did talk about which one was his favorite, and I found out an interesting piece of information about Taft. Do you know he's such a big Van Halen fan that he changed his middle name to Van? Mm-hmm. I did not know that.
I can believe
that was crazy.
Yep. He is a massive Van Halen fan.
Yeah.
Like, big does not even describe it. All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit avnation.tv, where you'll find this show, as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you check them out as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.